Today I'm out. It's only 5 degrees. But there's no wind, it's completely still. So it doesn't feel like 5 degrees. I've bundled all my layers on and already I'm absolutely roasting. Today I'm on the way walking down to my local cemetery. There is a purpose though. Those of you who were following me last year will know that I'm really into family history and genealogy research. And I've been doing this for like 30 years now. Inspired by my interesting family history. And one of the websites I use in my research is a site called Findagrave, which is there as a repository for information about where people are buried. So every church, every burial place has a location, and you can enter people in, you can enter their grave details, so that researchers, genealogists, relatives, ancestors can find where their loved one's buried. It's particularly useful if, for instance, you live in a different country to where your ancestors come from. And you just want to see where they're buried. And you can upload photographs as well. So I volunteer with Findagrave, and you can pick which cemeteries or church graveyards are near you and act as a volunteer. So if someone puts in a request and asks for photographs of a particular grave to be uploaded to that person's entry, you can go along to the grave, take the photographs, upload it, and family members will now be able to see where their relatives, their ancestors, their loved ones, because they may be quite recent as well as historic, and see where they are. And of course gravestones contain other useful information. So you might find that there's someone else buried within the same grave if it's a family plot that you didn't know about, or that you didn't know where they were. So it's a very, very useful website, and earlier this week someone uploaded a request, and so today I have taken this opportunity to get out and do some exercise. It's so quiet here. I love this graveyard because it's off the main road. It's not incredibly old. I think it was opened in the 1850s. But it's also on the edge of a nature reserve. So there's a lot of nature here. If I want to come out somewhere and get away from people, the graveyard is the best place to come. The old section, which is further down, is right on the edge of this nature reserve. And I've seen fire crests there. You can see the parakeets. I've seen redwings and fieldfares here in winter. So it's just a nice place to come in the summer when if you come midweek when most people are at work, you can sit on one of the benches under a tree and just watch nature. And of course the residents here don't give you any trouble. I love a graveyard. I'm not afraid of death. Graveyards are a repository for history. And I think it's really important that we keep an eye on them, look after them. Anyway, so I've come today really because we're going to have a big temperature dip in the next few days. In fact, by the time I upload this post, it will probably be there. It's going to get down to -3 at night and probably only 3 or 4 degrees during the day. And maybe I should have come out then, but I haven't been out in a few days, not properly out. And it's really good for you, particularly when it's cold, to get out and move around if you can. You know, when it gets cold, we think that if we hunker down under blankets with a hot water bottle, that's the best way to deal with things. But I found that if I get my layers on, get out, walk around, get the blood pumping, it's much better for my temperature, and it keeps me going. It's good exercise as well. I popped on the scales this morning. I wasn't going to, but I'm really impressed because I haven't put on any weight at all over Christmas and New Year. In fact, I don't think I've weighed myself since last October, and in fact I'm back down to the weight I was last May. I figure if I can keep things on an even keel, then at least it's not getting worse. But I do want this year, I don't make New Year's resolutions. Resolutions are made to be broken. If you're going to make a change to your life, do it now. And do it in bits. Don't think you have to go all out. Like if you want to start exercising, don't think you have to run 10 miles every day. Do a little jog. And I might start doing that again. I got really into running back in 2020. Overdid it and ended up with shin splints, which took over a year to heal. And I've never got back into the running after that. But I'm thinking about giving it another go, but doing what they call HIIT, H-I-T, which is where you do short bursts of blood pressure raising exercise. So what I might do is just go out in the morning on a nice morning, warm up, and then literally walk around the block. Jog around the block as a quick spurt. And if I did that 3 or 4 times a week, on top of other things that I'm doing, like now I'm doing the cleaning work, which is more exercise than I've done in the last year, that might make a difference. And particularly if I can keep my eating down a little bit. So, I'm at the graveyard now, so I'm going to switch off for a moment while I go and find this lady's grave. I don't put people's graves on videos. It's personal information, and it might also locate where I am, and I don't particularly want that. Lots of flowers here left over from Christmas. Some beautiful red roses here, which I am going to show you. So that's that done. I found her, and now when I get home I can upload those to the website, and those people can see where their relatives are buried. There's a lot of Christmas decorations up here. People are very liberal with their decoration of graves, and it's nice to see that so many people are remembered. Lots of people living long lives, lots of children here, lots of babies. And some of these people have probably spent a fortune on these graves. There's one, I can't remember where it is. This baby was just days old when it died, and it's the most enormous grave I think I've ever seen. And it is always festooned with flowers and cards, and this baby has been gone some time. And I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. Of course they should. If that's what they want to do, they can do what they like. My mum always said she never wanted to be buried because it anchors you to a point that you have to stay at. So if you move, who's going to come and tend the grave? Who's going to come and make sure that everything's okay? Whereas if you're cremated, you are scattered to the winds or wherever you want to be put. And your memory of that person is always with you. They are always with you. And I like that idea. Of course, that doesn't always work. My dad couldn't decide what to do with Grandad when he passed away. So we've kept him. And he's now in the study. He's been with us for about 25 years now, I think. It's been a long time. He was in the loft for quite a while, and I got fed up with that. I was like, come on, you can't just leave him in the loft or leave him in a box. He was still in the box. He came back in from the crematorium. So a couple of years ago, I finally managed to persuade Dad to do something a bit more permanent. And he had, there's a store on Etsy where you can buy cremation boxes, and they engrave the plate for you. This beautiful little box, and he was a carpenter, so he would have quite liked that. And now he sits in the study with a lovely photograph of him on top, of him in his police uniform, because he was in the Met Police. And I really like it, actually, and I know lots of people have done this where they couldn't bear to part with what was left of their relative, particularly when it was a parent, and they kept them, and lots of people do it. They're there in little urns sitting on the bookshelf. And if that works for you, then do it. And my mum has had all their pets cremated over the last 10 years or so. So there are little cremation boxes everywhere, because my mum couldn't let them go. There are 4 or 5. We have the dogs, several cats, who all have little boxes, because there's a pet cemetery, pet cemetery and crematorium, not that far from where Mum and Dad live. And so they had their pets cremated as well. So it is a full house. Just another thing I'm going to have to deal with at some point when I'm responsible for that process. Let's not think about that. Anyway, we are in the peace of this lovely cemetery, and I'm just walking down actually through the section. There's the Garden of Remembrance. I'm just on the edge of where the graves are, and now I'm going to walk through and past the Garden of Remembrance. And a lot of these are just little, I don't know if people are scattered here, I suppose they are, but they have name plaques. And I'm just going to show you what it looks like. So we've got the old section. So this is the old section with the little plaques in the ground, and it's a sea, an absolute sea. So these people are still anchored to coming to these places. And then where they've extended the cemetery, we have this new section here where they have these little memorials, and they've extended all the way out, reclaimed this land. So I'm just going to walk and talk a bit. It's so quiet. You can hear the parakeets. And there are magpies off to the right. There's a dunnock off in the distance, otherwise known as a hedge sparrow. Pigeon. Dogs. There's a kennels way over the other side there, so that's probably what that is. I'm just going to put the... Look, I got new gloves for Christmas. They're fleece lined, they're thermal lined, and they have the little bit that you put over your fingers. So I'm just going to put that over because my fingers are getting cold. I got good presents for Christmas. I got thermal pyjamas. There we go, look. It's so cool. And it's great because I can keep gloves on and still use the phone because I can just flip my fingers back and press what I need to on the phone. 3 magpies. 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for a girl. And there go the parakeets. I love it here because I can just listen to the bird life. Four magpies, that's a boy. I was listening to a podcast about wellness and about just doing things gradually and improving your life slowly and in manageable chunks. And that is far better than New Year's resolutions, which you ultimately will break because you'll pile on far too much pressure and responsibility on yourself and you won't be able to keep it up. So if you want to exercise more, maybe it's just running those errands by foot rather than driving. If it's eating better or eating less, cut one sugary thing out of your life. Leave the rest, one thing at a time. Because good habits take a long time to build into your routine and build into your psyche. So frugal living isn't something you can do, oh, I'm suddenly going to be a frugal lifestyler. It's taken me 6 years of gradual, let's try a bit of this, let's try a bit of that. This works, let's do this differently. And before you know it, you've cut back on your spending, you're saving more, you're not worrying about money. Some people say, oh, you're tired, why would you want to live in austerity? Actually, it's about not being stressed out about being in debt. I have no debt. I don't worry about being able to pay my bills. I don't want for anything. I've got everything I need. I have more clothes than I can wear. I have more than enough food. I'm not the kind of person that has to go out on a Friday night and get drunk. I don't have to go out and eat takeaways. I don't need delivery drivers. I don't need Amazon. We are programmed by retailers to constantly want, because we're told that those material things and all that stuff is what makes you happy and makes you successful, makes you popular. And it isn't. It really isn't. Don't need any of that. You don't have to spend lots of money to have a happy life. And if that's the way you think, then you really need to relook at your life. They say there's a peak point at which you stop being happier having more money. And when you start earning more than that, like millions, it doesn't add to your happiness or your quality of life, because it's just money in the bank then. And there is only so much you need in your life to be happy. I have no problem with the way I live. Yes, I am cold sometimes, but being a bit colder in winter has made me view the weather differently, the seasons differently. So when the weather starts to change or when spring arrives, no idea how happy I am when I realise that spring is here. My appreciation of the seasons, in the same way that nature does, has really changed over the last 4 or 5 years. My appreciation of being able to open a window on a warm day, of the daylight hours getting longer, of being able to wear lighter clothes, just makes me feel happy in a way that money wouldn't do the same thing. Of course, it's toughened me up. I've found now that if I can get the flat to about 14 degrees, that's actually really comfortable for me now, because I've really toughened up. So here I am out today Yes, I'm walking, I'm moving, I'm not pacing myself. It's 5 degrees and I'm pretty toasty in my coat and my gloves and my hat. I don't feel cold. And in fact, because there is no wind here today, can you hear the blue tits? There's a little gang of blue tits up there in the tree, up in those trees there. Forgot what I was saying, distracted by blue tits. Anyway, this is nice. And when I'm done here, I will brisk walk myself back home, having noodles for lunch. I pulled some of the noodles out the freezer, so they're defrosting. I'm looking forward to my noodle lunch. One of the other things that I was listening to, and I don't know if this was a podcast or it may have been another YouTuber, was talking about energy vampires. Those people in your life who drain all the happiness out of it. Maybe you've got that one friend who just moans at you the whole time, and you try to avoid them because you know that every time you see them they're just going to bitch about something or whatever. Get rid of them. I got rid of all the energy vampires in my life because my God, they were draining, and I'm much happier for it. I've reached that age where I don't have to put up with that anymore. I'm not here to be someone's sounding board if they just can't sort their life out. I can't be done with it. And I like not having to be surrounded by that. And this is one of the problems with working in offices, is that you get mixed up with an awful lot of people you don't really have anything in common with, and there's always that one person in the office who drains your mental energy. So I don't miss any of the office politics. I'm standing next to some, whether they're pine or larch, I think they're larch trees. This is where I have seen the fire crests. I don't know if they're here today, but there are birds moving all around me. I don't know what they are. Oh, there's a fieldfare or a redwing. The winter migrants are here. There's a whole flock of fieldfares or redwings. They're right in the distance, so I can't tell which they are. And they're munching, oh, there's loads of them. And they're munching on the holly berries. Lots of holly trees here as well. I'm trying not to disturb them, but I'm also trying to talk to you at the same time. So I'm wondering if the fire crests are here. And I've seen tree creepers here as well. I like this section. I'm just going to flip it around and let you have a look at these trees. I can hear things moving around. There are small birds. Oh, there's a squirrel. Can you see him? I don't know if you can see him. He's hanging upside down on a branch. Looks like he's stripping off the bark. It's lovely here. If you stand still for long enough, things will forget you're here. And you'll start to see things. There's a memorial bench. Someone's put the Christmas decorations on it, so that their relatives get to have a little bit of Christmas. See the squirrel? There he is. You see him? The non-native greys. Let's walk on. I'll let you see where I'm going for a bit. People like the winter walks. This gorgeous tree. It's huge. Here's the holly tree. It's like a variegated holly. You can't tell from here, but it's got the cream and green leaves, lots of berries, keep the birds going through winter. I don't know how those little birds survive out here in the cold. Tiny little blue tits and tiny little wrens who are sleeping up in -degrees. It just amazes me. Has anyone been watching the Andes plane crash documentary series? It aired this week on Channel 5 here in the UK. 3 programmes. 1972, the Uruguay rugby team flying from Uruguay to Chile. They crashed in the Andes. There were 45 people on the plane, and eventually 16 people came out alive. They were there in the mountains with the snow between October and December 1972 for 72 days. And 16 of them came out alive, and they survived by basically eating their dead comrades. And I certainly don't judge them for that. You had a choice. You could either not and die, or do it and survive, and 16 of them came out alive. It's quite incredible. And how they get out is amazing, because 2 of them decided to cross the Andes after nearly 70 days of virtual starvation and somehow managed to walk with no professional gear, no professional layers, just the clothes that they were there in. And bearing in mind they'd flown from Uruguay and were on their way to Chile, they had summer layers. It wasn't cold. You know, it could Christmas on the beach there. So they had like light jackets and shirts and sunglasses and things like that. And they survived. Two of them walked across. It turned out they'd actually crashed in Argentina, and they didn't quite know where they are. So these two chaps, they were the strongest two. They'd found a map in the plane. So the plane had crashed and broken up into various pieces, and they were using the fuselage as home. And then out on a walk one day, they managed to find the tail section. They found a map, a plane map, and tried to get an idea of where they were. And they thought they were close to civilization. They thought they were about 8 miles. And I think it turned out to be they were actually 100 miles, because they couldn't work out where they were, because they were so far off course when they crashed. They were actually in Argentina. They crossed the border. And so they walked for, I think, 7.5 days or something, and ended up coming to the end of the Andes. The snow ended, and it was green, and there were trees, and they found the river, and they followed the river for a bit, and then they saw a cow. They thought, if there's a cow here, there must be people somewhere. And they walked on a bit more, and then they saw a man on a horse. And basically they were saved. And the footage is incredible. Whilst they were looking at that rear section of the plane that they'd found, they found a camera, and they used it to take some photographs and document the survivors, the 16 survivors. So you get to see them living in and around this fuselage, waiting to be rescued. And they'd managed to rig up a radio and found out that after 8 days, the rescuers had given up trying to find them. So after 8 days, they knew no one was looking for them, so they were on their own. And it was really heartbreaking, because they watched family members die in the plane next to them on the way. Some people had died in the crash, other people had died from the injuries afterwards, and some people had starved to death days and weeks afterwards. And they'd had to eat people to live. But they hadn't killed them, they hadn't murdered them to live. These people had died, and they're still up there. They haven't been able to bring down any of the bodies. So these people are still up there, preserved for eternity, I should imagine. It's extraordinary. The things that people can survive if they need to. And eating their comrades, their friends. Although they were malnourished when they were rescued, the doctors were surprised at how well they actually were. And they weren't tucking into people steaks or anything like that. They weren't enjoying it by any stretch of the imagination. They were only eating what they had to. They were like eating little bits, because their bodies, by the time they were eating, their bodies had like almost seized up and they couldn't swallow and things like that. So it was a very slow process. But there was one guy who was a little bit of an inventor, and he invented sunglasses, because they were getting blinded by the snow on the sunny days. So he made sunglasses that would protect them from the UVs, and they made backpacks out of blue jeans that they found in scattered luggage, and they pulled out the insulation in between the layers of the plane and made it into sleeping bags, and sewed it with copper cord, copper wire that they had found in the plane. So they were really resourceful, and I was thinking, that's the sort of thing you would do. And I was imagining if I was there, these are the sort of things I would do to survive, taking things around you from the plane, from other people, from the luggage that was left lying around, and fashioning it into things that you needed. So that was really interesting. I'm at a little central walkway, and I'm just going to show you, without turning the phone around because I can't be bothered. Where is it? There. That there is a really old magnolia tree, and when it blooms it is absolutely covered in the beautiful white flowers that you get on magnolia trees. And there are benches around this section, and this is a nice place to come and sit in the summer. When it's really hot, it's really shady here. So there's lovely, I don't know how old this tree is. It looks really ancient for a magnolia. It's quite tall, but it's got this lovely twisted branches, as you can see there. It's lovely. I think I'm going to head home. I think this is going to be quite a longish post, but I hope you find it interesting. I like these little walks. I haven't done many lately, mostly because the weather's been rubbish and because I have been doing exactly what I said I shouldn't do, which is just hiding away indoors with a hot water bottle. But the weather is going to get colder, and I'm mentally prepared for it. I've been doing quite well at home. I've got a nice little routine going, so the heating goes on at 5 o'clock. I have the thermostat set to 14. There's no point in having it set higher because I've also got a thermometer in my flat and it never gets above 14, 15, no matter how much I whack up the heating, and I think that's because the insulation's naff, the windows are naff. So I've got the thermostat set to 14. It comes on at 5. I cook dinner, so that warms things up a little bit. I've had hot food, and then I let the heating stay on till about 9 o'clock, because by the time I've done all that, and I've done the washing up, and I've got into my bedclothes and my layers, and I've got my hot water bottle, my hot tea in my thermos cup, by about 8:30, I've thawed right through. And then when I switch the heating off at 9, I'm warm enough for the rest of the evening then. And then I top up my hot water bottle before bed, take that to bed with me when I'm in bed, because I've got like massive thick duvets and stuff. When I've been in bed for a few minutes, I'm already warm. It warms up really fast, and then I'm good for the night. So 14 degrees seems to do the job. I've just done my January meter reading, and because I've been away for 2 weeks over Christmas and New Year, my meter readings are lower than last month, so it'll probably work out about the same, because obviously the energy bills went up on the 1st of January, but it's not going to be any worse than it was at my December reading. And then I'm just going to have to carefully manage my gas usage. My electricity doesn't change. I've got LED lights, everything I use is very carefully managed. I don't leave lights on that I don't need on, so my energy usage for electricity doesn't change month to month in the winter. It's just the gas usage I need to watch. So I just need to, I think I've got a nice routine going now, but I must keep an eye on it. I must make sure that I don't go, I don't want to get as high as I was in December, which was like 25 units I used. This last reading I've used, I think it was like 11 units I've used. 7 units, I think it was 11 units on the meter last time, which was 25 kilowatts, that was it. And this time I have used 7 gas on the meter units. So I've used 4 less. So hopefully the bill will be slightly lower. So I'm not worried about my next bill, and then I can just keep monitoring month to month to make sure that if I can stay below, if I can just stay at 7 for the next 3 months. It's not going to be possible, isn't it, because I've been away. I'll have to see how I get on and just keep an eye on things. It's difficult because it depends on the temperature. You know, we've got a cold snap coming, which means that heating is going to be needed. But then in a few weeks' time, those temperatures might rise again and I don't need it as much. And I know I talk a lot about the weather, and it seems like I'm probably a bit obsessed about temperatures, but when you are very much at the mercy of the weather, it's not like I can just whack up the heating when it's cold and not worry about it. So it's important to know what's coming weather-wise so that I can be prepared for how cold it might be. So in a few days, or at the point where you're probably watching this, it will be -3 at night. It'll be 3 or 4 degrees during the day. So I know that's coming. So I can prepare for it and make sure that I'm ready, and I've got my warm layers ready, and that maybe I plan to be out more. Maybe you know, I'll start using the library more. Now I've got a new laptop which doesn't need to be plugged in all the time. I can now take that to the library and use that as a warm space. I just need to check their opening times. So there's all sorts of things like that I can do which will help keep me warm when it's extra cold, especially during the day because the heating's not on during the day. Anyway, I've waffled enough. You're probably sick of hearing my voice at this point. I'm going to leave the very wonderful, peaceful cemetery behind, and I'm going to brisk walk home to get my temperature back up because I've been standing around a bit and feeling a little bit chilly around my neck and my lower legs where I'm not covered by my puffer coat. Yeah, so we're going to brisk walk home, and then it'll probably be time for lunch. Get a nice hot cuppa, make my noodle lunch, and then I shall upload all this footage and probably spend most of the afternoon editing. Probably my next update will be my first month of YouTube monetization, and that's been interesting. So keep watching and I'll give you an update on what I actually earned in my first month being paid to upload things to YouTube. It is kind of exciting. Bye bye, speak to you soon.